Tell that testimony that you told us this afternoon.
Okay. Can I actually?
Yeah, whatever. You can do whatever you want. I just thought that, it's your meeting tonight. I'm just filling in for your partner.
You're a good day. Oh gosh. Yeah. So this one, the first one I'm going to tell is from Canada, and the second one is from the UAE. And so I always like to have the thing where like God is moving in radical ways all around the world, and it's not just like one place or the other place. And so I was just in Canada speaking at a conference, and I have a really good friend. This guy's radical. Oh man, he went to the school of ministry. He's taught one of the, whenever people just kind of come out of nowhere and you're like, oh my gosh, like, where did that come from? This guy preached one of the most ridiculous messages I've ever heard.
Ridiculously good?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
So good.
Ridiculous in Brian's generation means incredible.
Yeah. Well, incredible, credible is
awesome. That
you are, like, credible means you have credibility, incredible means you aren't. So if you say incredible, it's actually you're not credible. So, it's like saying ridiculous.
Okay, that's true. Thanks.
Which I am.
Anyways, so, just to give a little background for this kid. We're in Honduras. They give us this meeting to go, preach at, and I'm like, hey, I turn it over to him. He starts just, he's on his knees, almost crying. He's like, if you would have seen Jesus, on the cross, taking the nails for you, he just, preaches the gospel of the cross, that Jesus died, he did it all, you can't work to get salvation, the love of God poured out through the sacrifice of Jesus. People are just, getting whacked all over him. And this kid is, a drunk.
Wow.
He's, Savio drunk, Maybe. He's super whacked. And he gets up there and starts preaching about, the love of God through the sacrifice of Jesus. And you're like, these messages don't normally go together, The crazy drunk is usually about, joy overflowing message, And people just start getting delivered in the message from just,
wow.
People just start, manifesting stuff and, carrying
really?
People out. Yeah, and it was
great.
Radical. This one kid, he was a street kid that they brought to the meeting that they pulled off the street, totally starts manifesting this demon. We take him just outside so the message will keep going. And it was the accounts of Jesus delivering people, and it was like they're dead. And then, they came back too. That's what happened to this kid. It was like he died. It was weird. He was, barely breathing. He was just crazy and, came out of it completely different.
Awesome.
So anyways, that's this guy. He lives in Canada, Grand Prairie, Alberta, way up north. I was just there at a conference. It was, -20. So this
that's
is
Fahrenheit.
really nice. Yeah.
So in Celsius.
-20 would be Celsius, wouldn't it?
No, that's Fahrenheit.
The day I left was -28 Celsius.
Right.
Oh, Celsius?
Yeah, -28 Celsius, which would be somewhere really cold. Fahrenheit. I don't know. I know at 40 they're the same.
Yeah.
-40, so I don't know.
That's normal temperature for that region in the winter.
But this apparently is a bit early for that cold from what they're saying. Anyways, so this guy moved back, left Bethel, moved back home, works for his church, and he had, I'm trying to remember that story exactly. He had this thing, he has just this thing of deliverance. People walk in off the street, they're completely, alcoholics, crazy. And this guy comes in, he just, buys them coffee, prays for them, they're, delivered of alcoholism. Just, bam. Just crazy. So, he goes to the hospital every week, one day a week, he goes to the hospital and prays for people. And he prays for a lot of babies. He's had babies that are, gonna die, and they get released.
Oh.
And so, this one day, he goes into the hospital, and he prays for this baby. He's there, and the family's there, and they're all super sad, because they're this kid only has a couple days to live. And he gets to the mom, and he's like, I feel like this mom just needs to accept Jesus. And so he's like, hey, he talks to the mom, he's like, hey, could you come with me down to the chapel in the hospital? And she's like, yeah. So he takes her down there just to get her away, because sometimes there's weird, like, connection stuff, spiritual unbelief, whatever, and it's just like, sometimes you need to physically move someone to a different place. And so he takes her down there. He's like, hey, do you have Jesus? She's like, well, my family is religious. He's like, no, do you have Jesus in you? She's like, no, I don't. He's like, well, we need to get you saved first thing. So she's like, okay. So he prays for her. She totally gives her life to Jesus, gets saved. The next day, the baby goes home, completely healed.
Wow.
It's just seeing crazy miracles with just like babies, infants, all that. So that was like the intro. Then he goes upstairs because he has a friend who's a nurse in this hospital, so she'll like take him around to all the people that want prayer. And he has a buddy with him, and he goes in to this room, and there's this girl. She's like got the plugs and the tubes and everything stuck in her, and they're like, the family's definitely like mourning already, sort of thing, because the girl only has like a very short time to live. She's in ICU, all that, and you're only supposed to have so many people in there and all that, so they're kind of breaking the rules to begin with. And so he sees this picture of her. She had this lung blood clot in her lung, was the condition. So they're like, we can't do anything about this blood clot. It's going to spread into her lungs, and that's it. So he sees this vision of the girl reaching up to heaven and grabbing a lung from heaven and putting it in herself. Wow. So the family's all there. The girl is completely just like no strength left in her. And he's like, hey, I just saw this picture of you grabbing a lung out of heaven and putting it back in you. So if it's possible for you to move, just do that. And she's like struggling to try to move. And not much is happening. And all of a sudden it's like power just comes into her, and she just reaches up like this and like grabs this, like she's just imagining, right? Like just, you know, a little, let's just do a little bit of like picture in your mind time, you know? Grabs this lung, puts it in herself, and he said whenever she like reached up, the fear of God just entered the room. And it just got super heavy, and his buddy gets blasted against the wall and just getting whacked. And just like, just getting hammered, can't get off the wall. The whole family, the fear of God hits them. They all start weeping, just like crying, and just like blasted. He's like down on his knees, like laying on the bed, just getting worked. And the girl starts like trembling, like vibrating on the bed. And what was he saying? I forget what is it actually saying, but he was like, just saying like, glory, 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 or something like that, just like shouting in ICU, just like, glory. And the nurse comes in and is like, you gotta be quiet, this is ICU, you can't be sick, like, take it easy. And he's like, whoa, and just like getting hammered, and his buddies in the corner, the family's crying, and the nurse leaves. This girl just like shaking like crazy, and then like comes out of it, sits up in bed, and just like starts pulling stuff out of her nose. And they have her on like heart monitors, all this stuff. Everything's going crazy, like all these guys come into the room. Like the nurses are like, "What are you doing? You're gonna die! Like you can't do this." She's like, "No, like I'm better. Like I'm healed. Like it's gone." And they're like, "No, like no, you're not. Like you're not." Like look at me, I'm sitting up. Like I'm doing good. And the next day she was released.